Alright guys, I'm going to do a real quick video about how to eliminate microphone static sounds in OBS. And I'm going to quickly review my settings. And I'm a little annoyed because all the other settings guides and things like that didn't cover the one particular or the two particular settings that really fixed all my issues and made everything easier. So I'm going to talk about my audio setup first, and then I'll show you the magic fix-it button. So first, just a quick overview of my filters. So I got my inputs here, my speakers, and my microphone. My speakers have a filter for sidechain ducking, and what sidechain ducking means is it's basically just going to make, it's using a compressor. The filter type is compressor. It's using a compressor to basically reduce the volume of the output from the speakers, the background music or whatever, when the microphone is generating sound. So it's going to compress it by 17:1 ratio, so it's compressing the output from the speakers if the output is louder than this threshold, which is negative 40 decibels. And then this is the attack and release time. You want to make these relatively aggressive so that the music fades out quickly when your microphone cuts in, and then fades back in relatively quickly when your microphone is quiet again. But you don't want to make them like one or two, because that instantaneous transition from like a high sound wave to a low sound wave can cause some of the hissing and popping. So that's one thing that can mess up your settings. And these settings, you're going to have to tune them individually and see what works for you. And then I set my sidechain ducking to the microphone so that it does this based on the microphone output. Now the second set of filters is for the microphone itself. I've got a noise gate, which what that does is it's going to close the microphone input, so it's no longer going to listen for microphone input if the input falls below negative 50 decibels. And then it's going to open the microphone and start listening again if the sound level goes above negative 45 decibels. So that's good for cutting out quiet background noises like your computer fan and things like that. So it'll basically shut off the microphone if you're not actually talking, if you're not generating a loud enough sound to pass this open threshold. Attack time is how quickly the microphone starts listening when the noise goes above the threshold. Hold time is like it has to hear another sound that's above the closed threshold within a certain number of time. This is milliseconds, I believe, in order for it to keep the microphone open. And then when it decides to close the microphone, there's a 150-second lead out. So that's the noise gate. Here again, I have a compressor, but in this case, the compressor is more about managing my volume. So microphone input, the volume can vary widely. The dynamic range of the microphone, you can have like a very quiet sound, like I said, like a fan noise or something like that, or you can have a very loud sound like somebody shouting or screaming into the microphone, especially if you're playing a horror game or something like that where you got to make a lot of noise. What the compressor does is it basically reduces the range of the sound. So I'm going to play with this slider just to show you guys what it looks like. So watch how far along this bar goes here from the microphone. So if I have my compressor ratio really low, then the sound volume varies a lot more. So I make a low sound like this. So it's going to be a little bit quieter. It goes down to this range, you can see. And then as I bring this back up, you can see that it evens out the volume of my voice and puts it in a more narrow range. So now every time it's hitting this red bar, I want to be like kind of in the middle of this red bar is where I want my voice volume to be. And threshold is 0, which means that it's going to apply this filter all the time. And attack and release, same thing. It's how quickly it starts doing this, how quickly it stops doing this. The output gain is like after I've done this processing to reduce the dynamic range. In other words, after I've leveled out the loud sounds and the quiet sounds to make them more consistent, then I'm going to boost the output from that by this much. So that's a 23 decibel boost in my case that I'm applying to make the total output go up into this red range. Noise suppression, I use CPU quality noise because this is a lot more effective than the speaks noise. This requires some manual settings, and this RN noise is basically using like some kind of primitive artificial intelligence or some kind of algorithm to analyze the sound coming in to decide whether it's noise or whether it's useful sound. So it's just filtering all that junk out. Like again, this is like white noise, like fan noise and stuff like that. It's trying to filter that stuff out. And then last but not least, I have a limiter. And this is basically just saying I don't want my output to be completely maxed out. Even after the compressor, even after I've reduced the range, it's possible for me to get a really loud sound. I don't want to get the sound to be above, what the speaker can handle. So I'm going to set a threshold that's just below the maximum here. So those are my OBS filter settings. Those are kind of like the key components to making my speakers and microphone work well. But one problem that I was having very frequently is I would hear like hisses and pops coming from the background sound, or the background sound would be kind of echoing. The music that was playing on my PC would be echoing in the background. And what I found out was actually happening was the microphone in my headset is actually picking up the noise that's generated from my headphones, and it's actually playing it back onto the microphone input. So I was getting this kind of delayed echo that it would, if I had like a loud drum beat or like a percussion, something like that, going on in my headset, then I would get this pss, 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 sounds like that in the microphone input, and it's basically like it's what the headphone sounds like from like 6 inches away, which is where your microphone is relative to the headphones, right? So the magical setting that I found that fixes all that is a Realtek audio setting. So if you have a Realtek sound card, which a lot of computers do, you can go into your Windows Start menu, or your window menu, whatever they call this in whatever version of Windows you're using, and there's an app here called Realtek Audio Console. So I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to look at my microphone, which is the third panel here. And now here I've checked the noise suppression, and I've checked the acoustic echo cancellation. And so what these things do, noise suppression is is suppressing noise from the microphone itself, and then acoustic echo cancellation, or AEC for short, is basically listening for noise coming from other audio outputs like the speakers or the headphones, and it's canceling out that noise when it's in the microphone recording. So it's basically subtracting that sound from the microphone input. So that's a super critical feature. That is really like, this is the magic setting that fixed the problem for me. I struggled with the OBS settings for such a long time. I watched all these tutorials, I did all these things, and none of it really helped. And I had to compromise between having hisses and pops, or having some kind of echo, or just having OBS not be able to hear my voice because I set a high threshold on an aggressive noise gate. But this was the noise was actually, since the noise was actually an echo from the headset, when I checked this checkbox, that completely fixed the issue, and it completely went away. So I hope this saves your day. I hope this helps somebody else who is stuck in the same boat that I was stuck in. Thanks very much for watching. Let me know if this helped you in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. It's free, and I'll see you next time.